Hello and welcome. This is the Champaign Room Live. I am joined by the recently married Robby Nardini. Um, and some stuff has happened, and we're going to break it down, but then we're also going to do a Brad Underwood wins at Illinois draft. So, which there's a lot. This was actually a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So, Robby, how was the trip and how's it feel to officially be married and everything?
Yeah, it's good to be back. Getting right to it. Got back on Saturday. Told you I'd be ready on Monday for a pod. I know I've been gone for a couple weeks now, but the trip was awesome. I'm a married man now, and told Sasha I wouldn't podcast in Italy, which I didn't, but definitely down to podcast some more up until the season, and of course during the season as well.
Yeah, you definitely didn't miss a ton. I feel like people knew Andre was going to come back and everything, and it's getting to that. I think it's getting to that June July feel of summer, which I know the guys are going to be back soon. They're going to be having some practices and things like that. But real quick, a huge note for us at the Champaign Room. We have partnered with Brian Hansen. Brian Hansen, State Farm agent. Brian is my guy, and he can be your guy. State Farm. We're proud to partner with State Farm agent Brian Hansen, a dedicated Illini fan, as I'm sure a lot of you have heard. And we work to bring you coverage of Illinois athletics. Brian brings that same energy and commitment to serving his clients. So if you're looking for a local professional who cares about the community and the orange and blue, visit brianismyguide.com today to see why so many fans trust Brian Hansen and his team for their home, auto, business, and life insurance needs. So we're super stoked to partner with Brian. Brian's awesome. Known Brian for a while with some of my previous ventures and through the 200 level and other things. So super happy to be partnering with Brian. But Andre Stojakovic is coming back, and Robby, I'll give you the floor. It's been around for a few days now that he's coming back for sure. But what were your thoughts? I don't know if you saw that when you were scrolling things over on your trip or whatnot. But what are your thoughts about Andre being back?
Yeah, it's coming back as expected. I think it's a sign of relief. He didn't really need to wait as long as he did. He was making me a little bit nervous, even though, I knew he was coming back and everything. But he really made us sweat as Illini fans. And I was sleeping over in Italy at the time. I woke up at about 1:30 a.m. randomly and had to check my phone to make sure Andre announced he was back. Of course, he did as expected. And if he would have left, that would have been a huge blow for the Illini. Honestly, would have ruined their season, I think. So Andre's back as expected. Instead of being a second round pick, he's making triple, quadruple the money than he would in the G League. So happy to hear that he's back, and he's going to be one of the best players at Illinois and in the Big Ten Conference as well.
Yeah, it was nice to just sort of get that. Okay, let's take a deep breath. We can stop thinking about the worst case scenario sort of deal. And he is for sure coming back. Just a couple other notes. Quentin Coleman just had a big game in the FIBA Worlds. I don't exactly know what it's called, but Illinois signee playing for the U18 American national team. So huge honor there. But tell us a little bit, Robby, what's Quentin Coleman up to?
Yeah, they call it the AmeriCup. It is the U18. So we saw some guys last year play on the U18 team. And we've had some guys, like Io play in Team USA before, but Quentin Coleman did play tonight. They did beat Argentina. He had 11 points and 15 rebounds, which is absurd. I said before that he's a really good rebounder, but having 15 rebounds in his first game for Team USA is outstanding. It was 7 offensive rebounds too, so he'll fit right in with Brad Underwood. And if he can duplicate those performances and help USA get a gold medal in the U18 America Cup, that'd be huge. I think gold medals for the United States of America, it's kind of expected for USA. You talk about LeBron, KD, all those guys that play for the national team and in the Olympics. It's kind of expected of them, but it kind of is like an underrated thing to have. Having a gold medal and as a basketball player is outstanding. If Quentin Coleman can do that for our country, that'd be awesome. And he was getting some good tick today, and obviously was a huge performer in their opening game against Argentina.
Yeah, the rebounds, that's crazy that he was able to get that many, and hopefully he can translate that because I think that's going to be a hole that Illinois is going to be looking for. Keaton was sneaky good rebounder, and that's something that Quentin can definitely step up and do, and that travels a lot of times when shooting and everything isn't hitting. So last thing before we get into our Brad Underwood wins draft, the Field of 68 put out their top returning players in college basketball after the NBA draft deadline, and the Big Ten is going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see who competes at the top of the Big Ten with Illinois, with Michigan, but just a handful. Fears coming back, not a big surprise. Elliot Cadeau, Trey McKinney, Price Sanford, Nolan Winter, Braden Frager. Big Ten's getting a lot of guys back. So, did any of these really stand out to you, Robby? And maybe it's not even just the Big Ten, but what do you think about the returning talent coming back to the Big Ten?
Yeah, I think in terms of the Big Ten, a lot of them were expected. Jeremy Fears, Andrei Stojakovic, Elliot Cadeau, all those guys were expected to come back. They weren't really on first round draft boards, so that's great to hear. I think all these players in general shows how good NIL is for the sport. I know people complain about NIL transfer portal, but half these dudes wouldn't be in college without NIL, and it keeps talent in college basketball, which is great. So it's a great list of guys coming back. Rob Bright is a former 5-star guard at BYU. Braylon Mullins is maybe going to be a first-round pick. He's for sure gone 1,000% if there's no NIL. He arguably should have went already, but he's got a really good chance to have a really good sophomore season and maybe even be a lottery pick. I think Jeremy Fears is number 3 on the list. He'll probably be preseason Big Ten Player of the Year. He was right there last year for Big Ten Player of the Year with Keaton Wagler and wow, I'm blanking on Michigan guy's name.
Yaxel.
Yaxel Lendenberg. Yeah, it's this jet lag's killing me, Isaac. Let me tell you. Yaxel, obviously Big Ten Player of the Year. As well as Perez Johnson. He's not on this player's back. He's one of those guys that stayed in the draft, which was kind of surprising. But yeah, really good list. A lot of these guys could probably, make their way to the NBA eventually. But Big Ten might be down a little bit compared to last year. I think Big Ten had a really, really good season last year with obviously 2 Final Four teams and some other really good teams like Purdue and Michigan State and whatnot. But it's still going to be a really good conference. A lot of guys coming back. 2 Illini's on this board with Stojakovic and Merkovich, which is great. And both those guys should lead Illinois to a great season.
Yeah, a lot of talent coming back. And NIL, transfer portal, all that stuff. It can be frustrating. It can be a little like a reality TV show in the off season, but the product is no doubt better. And it's going to be another awesome race next year in the Big Ten. All righty, let us get into it. So we are doing a draft of Brad Underwood's wins at Illinois. Brad Underwood wins at Illinois draft. There's a lot of them. This was harder than I thought it was going to be. And Robby, I'm going to let you go first, being the new married man. You can have a first crack at it. And I have a feeling you might be a little bit biased for the games you were a part of, but that's totally okay. There was a lot of big wins with Io and those guys when you were there, but there's been a lot of good ones recently. And there was even a couple recently that I forgot. So take the floor. The floor is yours. You have a lot to pick from. What is going to be your first overall pick in the Brad Underwood wins draft so far at Illinois?
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me first pick. I think for our 3-team draft, I got first pick as well. So definitely getting a little advantage here. I am a little bit biased for some games that I was a part of the program with, and I added some of those on our big list here. But I'm not going to overthink this one. Going to go with Illinois' last win last season against Iowa to get to the Final Four. I know Iowa was a 9 seed and Illinois was pretty heavy favorites for an Elite 8 game. But, just getting back to the Final Four for the first time since 2005, I don't care who you're playing. It's one of the biggest wins in program history, especially for Brad Underwood and company. And it was nice to beat, a rival like Iowa in that type of game. It was either Iowa or Nebraska. Either way, we've had our battles with both teams and especially recently with Iowa. So really just getting over the hump, getting to the Final Four. Like I said, first time since 2005. I think that's got to be one, if not the most important win in Brad Underwood, Illinois history.
Yeah, it's interesting because of who you played and how the game played out. Now, obviously, Iowa was up on you early, and then as the game played out, it kind of felt like, okay, objectively, Illinois is the better team, but there was still that fear in the back of your mind, like, well, this would be terrible. It's not like we're playing Florida. Like if you lose to Florida, okay, that's understandable, but losing to Iowa to miss out on a Final Four would just be so heartbreaking. So that I think a lot of people are going to agree with you just because of the impact of what that game ultimately led to. I'm going to go, man, there's so many good games left. I think because I'm a little bit biased, I was at this game and a part of the court storm and everything and just what it ended up meaning, and I'm going to go Illinois over Iowa to secure the Big Ten regular season title. Now, there was a share with Wisconsin, but we don't need to talk about that. So Illinois over Iowa for the Big Ten regular season title. Just because of for me, it was kind of like, wow, this is a huge deal. Obviously, the Big Ten tournament is a massive deal, and I love both of our Big Ten tournament wins the last few years. But there's something about being the best team for the regular season, and the whole Big Ten season that is so important, I think. And that whole day, which I'm sure you obviously remember, we needed Nebraska to beat Wisconsin for us to have a chance, and everybody's like, no way that's going to happen. And then somebody knows his name. I forget the dude from Nebraska that went crazy and upset Wisconsin. So then Illinois has a chance. And I just remember like, oh my gosh, we have a chance to win the Big Ten. I was at Legends with people. It's like, we're definitely going to the game. And then Iowa hangs tough. They take the lead on you, and they're playing really well. And then Murray ends up missing that three late, and Trent Frazier grabs that rebound. Everybody remembers. And it's almost less about the win and just more about the day, and then the court storm and knowing that it was a banner, and just it really felt like another arrival moment for Brad Underwood. So I'm going to go with Illinois over Iowa for the Big Ten regular season title at home.
Yep. Yeah. Great pick. Nebraska did end up beating Wisconsin. I remember I was at that Illinois Iowa game as well. I was at Illini Inn watching that Nebraska Wisconsin game. Nebraska finished the season 10-21 and 4-16 in the Big Ten, and they got the job done for us. Wisconsin ended up being 15-5. Same with Illinois. Alonzo Verge with 26 points for Nebraska. That was exactly what we needed. And just to beat Iowa in that moment, too, all those battles, especially when I was with the program as a manager, there's so many battles with Iowa. Getting that first, I consider 2021 a regular season title. I know it's not official, but, that first official regular season title for Illinois in 2022, I think it'll be a goal for Brad Underwood this year and Illinois to get their first, not a share, I guess, outright Big Ten championship regular season. I think that'll be huge for them too. But yeah, the game was awesome. Court storm, the call just on the radio and call on the TV was just amazing too. And just the scenes in State Farm Center really felt like one of the biggest moments in Illinois history. So that's a really good pick. I think I was going to go with that one too. So both of ours are beating Iowa, which is funny. I've said, so many good moments against them, and we've really dominated them over the years in basketball. So both of ours have involved Iowa. I think I'm going to stick with the Iowa, stay in the state, but this time beating Iowa State in 2024 in the Sweet 16. I know we ended up losing to UConn in the Elite Eight. UConn had one of the best teams of all time that season, so we fell short of the Final Four. But, we got to the Sweet 16, kind of a sign of relief just with Brad Underwood, although, maybe he couldn't make the Sweet 16, people hating on him for not being able to advance. And you have an easy road with an 11 seed in the round of 32. But I felt like that game, winning as an underdog in the Sweet 16, really advancing to the Elite Eight, really just validated the season. It was such a good run for Illinois that ended up losing to UConn, but that was one of the biggest wins in Illinois history as well, too. Making it to the Elite Eight. And I think that really set up this team last year to make the Final Four, having those, having that experience, having those failures for the coaching staff, I think went a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a massive game. And I think entertainment wise, that was just a really back and forth game. And Illinois kind of held Iowa State at arm's length. And Terrence had such a big game. The Terrence steal and dunk that was one of my most memorable Illinois basketball plays of my life. Just the way it happened. I was with Carp at the 200 level and a bunch of his friends, like just going crazy. And it just really cemented things. Like, it was really fun to make the Sweet 16, obviously, but something about beating Iowa State and being the slight underdog, I think, in that game, and Iowa State was a lot of people's was some people had them even maybe having a chance against UConn. So just getting that win was super nice, and I agree. There was just something about it. Competitive game, everybody was watching. That was gonna be my fourth pick. So I'm going to take, again, I did a bad job explaining this. We're each going to draft 5 teams or 5 games. Sorry. So it'll be my 5 wins versus Robbie's 5 wins. And then we're going to probably have some leftovers too. But I'm going to go with my second pick, Illinois over Duquesne. And let's see if I can spell Duquesne. I'll have to look that up and spell it. But obviously not a super competitive game, but what it meant for the program and making the second weekend for the first time since 2005, I think was just massive. And it was a interesting like range of emotions that 48 hours or so, because a lot of people were picking BYU to upset you, and then it's like, okay, BYU loses to Duquesne. Duquesne's hot, but they really shouldn't even be here in this spot, and then you end up dominating them. I think you're up 18 or 20 at halftime. But again, it's just like every time Underwood does something, it was like you won the Big Ten tournament, then you won the Big Ten regular season, you make the second weekend. Now you make the Final Four. Every time you're just taking a layer off of that Illinois fandom anxiety, that tenseness that you always feel thinking that the other shoe's going to drop. And that was a major layer that Brad Underwood and Illinois broke through, thanks to Terrence Shannon, thanks to Marcus Damask, Quincy Guerrier, and Coleman, and all those guys. So that was a massive one, at least for me. I think getting that monkey off the back and moving on to the second weekend, and then just knowing for the first time in 20 years almost, Illinois is going to be able to enjoy a week of people talking about us as one of the 16 teams left. So, and obviously we got a lot of that this past year too, but at the time and as a fan, I think that was just so impactful for me. So that's going to be my second pick, and I'm going to look at how you spelled Duquesne.
Yeah, no, that was a good one. It really answered a lot of questions. Just like I said before, can Illinois make the Sweet 16? Can Brad Underwood, make the Sweet 16? A good draw helps, of course, and we've taken off since. I think that was a huge win for the program, and 11 seeds make the Sweet 16 every year. So not being upset like we were in 2021, taking care of business like we have the past couple of years against teams that were better than, I think that really set that up for an Elite Eight run and eventually a Final Four run. So that's definitely a good one. And I think I'm going to stick with the Sweet 16 wins. I'll go with Houston as my next one this past season. Being Houston in the Sweet 16, that one really just felt like it was like an Elite Eight game. You had Iowa or Nebraska coming up in the Elite Eight, which you would be favored in. You'd be better than both of those teams that we showed in the regular season. So that really felt like it was a Elite Eight game, and it was in Houston as well. So another underdog win in the Sweet 16, similar to 2024. This time it was in Houston's home city, obviously not in their home arena, but it was a lot of pressure on Houston, and Illinois answered the call. They brought their defensive grit like they never did throughout the entire season, and their game plan was just on point the entire game. Houston had minimal points in the first half, and they really just dominated them. I know it was a close game overall, but it really felt like Illinois was in control the whole time. Their game plan was amazing. Everyone showed up when they needed to, and Houston's been a really good program over the years. Hopefully, we get to see Illinois Houston play this season. I know there's some rumors of that, but they kind of answered some questions as well. Can Illinois beat an athletic, physical team like Houston, someone that has the most grit out of any team in college basketball? And they did that. And it really felt like when they won that Sweet 16 game, it was real that we had an amazing chance to go to the Final Four.
Yeah. And it was so sneaky dominant. I think that's like the thing I'll never forget about it, because it really did feel like from the jump. Now, Houston, it was close at first, and then they made it closer at the end. But the middle meat of that game, your defense was so good, and Houston could not stop you. And haters after the game keep saying, "Oh, Houston couldn't hit a shot. Houston couldn't hit a shot." Your defense was just unreal, and you finally saw the length that you had been told Illinois had all season. And we saw with our eyes, this is the Illinois team we thought on defense we were going to get all season. And that Houston team was so hot. So many national people had them beating Florida to get to the Final Four. So I don't listen to that negativity for 1 second, but I agree that something about being a slight underdog, and there was something so refreshing about, holy cow, Illinois stepped up in the moment, like well over exceeded my expectations. It's different than even the Iowa State game where you were able to squeeze it out, win by a few points. Like, for, again, the middle chunk of that game, you really dominated. And I think, kind of like what you were touching on, established Illinois big time. And like, I think that's going to be a game people remember. Like, people remember those big games against top programs. And super nice to beat Kelvin Sampson, obviously. And that was definitely what I'll remember, also because it was a super late game. I think it started at like 9:30 my time. So
yeah, it was a late one for sure.
And
yeah, I feel like just being able to like beat a team that you're underdogged with. Illinois hasn't really lost a lot of tournament games where they were a heavy favorite. Loyola's the only one. You could argue Kentucky, they were favorite at first, then went to underdog, whatever. I mean, that's a toss-up game. You think about it. Illinois has done really well as a favorite in the NCAA tournament under Brad Underwood, and getting those, upset wins, you can call it. I know it's only a few points, but against Iowa State and Houston, I think that those games where you step up and kind of exceed expectations go a long way.
No, definitely. It's not easy to do. I am going to, again, this one feels a little bit biased for me because I was at the game, and I think it was just, again, one of those layers that Illinois broke through. But I'm going to take Illinois over Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament. Because that was your Brad Underwood's first Big Ten title, and it was just a weird time coming off of COVID and everything. And it was like half fans, half not at Lucas Oil Stadium. And you were just on an absolute heater to end the season. And that was some of the best Illinois basketball I've seen. Like, I recently went back and watched, when I was looking up something for Curbelo, and that team was just on a heater. So it makes it it makes the Loyola game even crazier. Just think about how good they were playing going into that game. But that really felt like, oh my gosh, if we don't win the Big Ten regular season and we don't win the Big Ten tournament, which Ohio State almost pulled it out, that just would have felt pretty underwhelming. And then, especially looking back, knowing how the season ended, but that was a banner. Banners hang forever. You're able to hang that. Brad Underwood's first banner at Illinois. And that team was just on a crazy run. And you beat Iowa, you whooped Rutgers on the first night of the tournament, and then you got Ohio State, and Ohio State almost beat you. But that was a really fun game and a really fun weekend. So, yeah, that one got you banner. That's going to be my third pick.
Yeah, good pick. Beat Ohio State in overtime. 25% capacity. Lucas Oil, first banner in a long time for Illinois, and that team was really really good until the Loyola game. They were 9-5 at one point, and then was 23-6 going into the NCAA tournament. So they literally lost one game since January 16th, which makes it even crazier, like you said, to lose Loyola. But yeah, not winning that regular season, bogus rules where Michigan won it, whatever. But it felt like that team was so motivated to win the Big Ten championship, where it was nice to get that banner and get that championship. I think that ultimately ended up hurting them in the tournament, just putting so much effort into the Big Ten tournament and kind of making that their priority. But in the end, that win was one of the best wins in Brad Underwood history for sure. So that's a really good pick there. And I know we've done mostly like off season or postseason games. I think you have one regular season game against Iowa, but all mine are in the tournament, and your other two are in the tournament. I'm going to go back to regular season and another against Iowa game. It feels like we're kind of praising Iowa with all these ones, which I don't want to do whatsoever. But Iowa was good back then, and I was at this game. It was my senior night as manager too. The win over Iowa at home before COVID hit. I think that's an underrated win for Illinois. Packed house, Luka Garza on Iowa and Wieskamp and all those guys kind of had a rivalry with Io and DeMonte and Connor McCaffrey on Iowa and everything too. A little chippiness in that game, and you really felt like a rivalry was building between Illinois and Iowa, and two really good teams in the Big Ten. I really felt like that win was huge for Illinois, just going into the first postseason they were going to make in a long time. Unfortunately, we were unable to do that, but it just felt like Illinois basketball really arrived after that win. Kofi block at the end of the game, and we've had some great wins against Iowa, like you said, with the Big Ten regular season, but that one really felt significant for the program. Felt like that team had a chance to make a run in the NCAA tournament, and it really validated a really good season for the program and their first postseason berth, you can call it, in a long time. But that was one of my favorite games. Obviously, I was a part of it as manager, and I think that one sticks in my memory for a long time.
Yeah, I'll never forget Kofi blocking Garza right at the very end, and then obviously DeMonte and McCaffrey getting into it. That was another one where did Iowa go up big, like 12 or 13, or Illinois went up big and then Iowa came back?
Yeah, I know we ended up winning by 2. And I remember Garza had a huge game with like 30 or something like that. But yeah, it was back and forth. I think Iowa was up to start. And then third quarter, you want to call it, or beginning of the second half, we had a huge run to kind of take the lead back, and they kind of punched us back in the end of the game too, if I remember correctly. But we ended up holding them off at the end of the game.
Yeah, man, there's so many good games left. But yeah, that was a great one. That was, again, like all those kind of felt like Illinois reaching the top of the mountain like one step at a time and being relevant, and that was definitely one of them. Man, there's so many places to go.
It's tough to choose now, I will say.
Yeah, it definitely, I wouldn't say it falls off, but it gets okay. I know what I'm doing. More recently, this one I think is kind of makes sense because Wisconsin has our number, but in the last few years we had Wisconsin's number, but for the longest time I don't think we didn't win at Wisconsin for like 20 tries or something crazy, right? It was something crazy.
Yeah, they beat us like 10 in a row, then we beat them 10 in a row. It's like it's been some runs.
Yeah. So in 2019, 2020, that same season, so you would have been there. I just remember watching that and thinking, like, here we go again. Illinois is gonna blow it at Wisconsin, and then Io steps up, hits that clutch 3, against Brad Davison. Iowa was amazing that game. And again, just another hurdle that Brad jumped over, and just something about those. I just am going to remember those blue uniforms, and you were just starting to build from that point on. It was like, okay, this team is legit. And correct me if I'm wrong, you had just not that long ago been dominated at Michigan State.
Yeah. I think a few games before. I think
Yeah.
we might have had a game in between, but yeah, we went to Michigan State right after New Year's, and they absolutely killed us. Cassius Winston went off, and yeah, the Breslin Center was going crazy. And then we kind of took off after that. Went on a huge winning streak after that, including the Wisconsin win.
Yeah, so I specifically remember feeling like, okay, we had some hype, but we really needed to prove it. And what better way than breaking the streak at Wisconsin? And again, that Iowa dagger was just so fun. Iowa had a great dunk in that game too. But yeah, I'm gonna go with my fourth pick, Illinois over Wisconsin to break that streak.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm looking at it now. 1-2 in the Big Ten. We beat Purdue to go 2-2, and then the Wisconsin game's next. Win that game by 1, and then you move to 8-2 in the Big Ten after that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wins after that Wisconsin one. Obviously, Io's dagger was amazing. He had a bunch of those throughout the season. There's a lot of road wins that season you can talk about too. You know, Purdue, Michigan. I know we got the Michigan one on here on our list too, as well as some more IO games. I think my next one, I guess my final one, will just be Big Ten tournament win over Wisconsin in the championship. I know I'm doing a lot of postseason here. I just think that one in 2024, we had a huge winning streak going. We were down in pretty much every game, if I remember correctly, in that Big Ten tournament. And yeah, beat Ohio State by 3, ended up beating Nebraska, then beat Wisconsin in that Big Ten tournament championship. I think just another banner for the program. Got second in the Big Ten regular season, if I remember correctly. Purdue was amazing. Ended up going to the national championship game and losing to UConn. But just getting a banner in that season and ultimately making the Elite Eight. I think that's a huge win. Second Big Ten tournament championship for Underwood and Illinois. So that was a big one, I think, and one of my favorite games too. Leading up right into Selection Sunday. I know it's probably not the best for the players and the coaches not being able to, kind of have a party and relax and get ready for the NCAA tournament. But for fans, it's pretty cool to, watch your team win the Big Ten championship and go right into Selection Sunday.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I was at Poor Brothers, I think, and it was like a perfect recipe each time, from the sense that, Ohio State gave you a tough time, and you were down big, and then Nebraska, I think, was up like 15 at one point, and Wisconsin, same thing, and then you just come back, and again, those runs were that team was just on such a heater, and different than the Iowa and Kofi team in the 1 seed team. It was a different type of heater, but you just really felt like Terrence is going to go off. Damas is going to do his thing. Your role players were playing really well. Quincy was playing well. Justin Harmon was making plays at times. Luke Gutty was still hitting threes back then. So that was definitely a big one. And again, got something tangible, got something you can talk about. And for my last one, I've been going back and forth, but I think I am going to go Illinois upsets Michigan State Iowa's freshman year, because dang it, now I'm just realizing most of mine are just the games I was at. But
that's all right.
Upsetting number 9 Michigan State, hope is a dangerous drug for fan bases, right? And that season was obviously pretty disappointing. I think we had hope with Io, but it was like, this guy might leave. Yeah. And even after that game, I mean, he still could have left. But that game gave me so much hope for trusting what Brad was building, because it was, okay, when we play well and our star freshman is hitting threes, like, we can compete. And Brad just had a better game plan than Izzo, and we just
Mhm.
executed better that game. It felt like Michigan State was on a little bit of a skid. They were still a top 10 team, and they still ended up, I think that was the team that went and beat Zion, right, in the tournament.
Yeah, that was.
So it's not like they were a scrub team. And again, that was just gave you hope, helped you buy into the vision of what Brad was building. And obviously the wins didn't stack up that season. And then I think that led to winning at Ohio State too, which was a big win.
Yep.
So just finished the season with some momentum and really built up hype going into the next season. So again, I was at that game, so I'm a little biased, but that was definitely a fun one. I know we've missed a ton, so quick, you were manager for that game, weren't you?
Yeah, I was manager. I was actually on the bench for that game. That was my second to last season, so I wasn't on the bench for every game, but that was a good one to be on the bench for. Io's shot, obviously, with Dan Dockich saying it's not going to
Yeah.
end well, is awesome, of course. And yeah, Michigan State ended up going to the Final Four that year, so definitely a good win. I know disappointing year being 12-21, but definitely gave some hope for the next year, and you saw that with an improved season. But that's obviously a good one. And Brad had a good game plan against Izzo. I feel like we don't beat Michigan State all the time, but I feel like Izzo and Underwood are pretty similar. They have
Mhm.
similar values when they're coaching, so it's always a good game and kind of a chess match between the two coaches.
Kenny Goins, is that who it was? Their big guy. I'm trying to think. They
Um,
had a couple stud
they
big
had
guys.
Nick Ward,
Nick
Xavier
Ward.
Tillman.
Yep.
Yeah, they had Kenny Goins too. Yeah, he was
Yep.
he was more of a forward, but yeah, and obviously Cassius, which
Stud.
outstanding player, and yeah, they were sick that year.
They had another guard. That wasn't, oh shoot, who was it? Anyways, um, cool. So if you had to pick, I know we got a handful more on our list. I know what my honorable mention would be because of what I was debating between, but what's your first honorable mention?
Yeah, I was really debating doing this one. The UCLA game in Vegas, I was there as
Yeah.
a fan, and it just was one of the sickest games I've ever been to. Just with all the Illini Nation in Vegas, it felt like, obviously, being in Vegas, people are very hyped up going into the game. Doing some pregame activities, of course. So it felt like it was a great vibe to begin the game. Stadium filled with Illinois fans. I mean, compared to the other teams, Virginia had a decent amount of teams, but UCLA and Baylor had like no fans there.
Mhm.
So Illinois really took over the stadium, and the vibes were so high to begin the game. And then I think we were down 39-24 at halftime, and the vibes couldn't be lower. I mean,
Mhm.
people were debating leaving. It just went downhill so quickly. And then TSJ ended up having like 7 or 9 threes, whatever it was. And we ended up coming back and winning. And I have videos on my phone of just Illini Nation going crazy in the stadium, escalator down the stairs, and in that stadium in Vegas. I think it just was one of the best environments for a neutral site game, and obviously beating a ranked team like UCLA was awesome. They ended up being like a 2 seed that season. I know we really only had like 2 big wins that year, and we weren't very good, but just a roller coaster of emotions for that game, and being in attendance. That was one of my favorite games I've ever been to.
Yeah. Terrence was 8 for 9 from three, went 29 points, 10 rebounds. That was a great one. And that was the definition of that team, obviously starting off slow, playing inconsistent. I remember the Northwestern game that year where they were down like 18 at halftime and came back and won. My first honorable mention was when you won. You were number 4, Michigan was number 2, and you were missing Io, and you just absolutely blitzed them and won by like 30. And that was obviously a great Michigan team. You came out and you literally played perfect. That was a great Curbelo game, if I do recall. And it was just nice knowing you could just tell that like they didn't have pressure almost. And there was something, and I'm most of my life I've been a Michigan hater, so that was also a sweet one. And I know Illinois fans feel about Juwan Howard, but yeah, that was a great one. And let's see, what would be another one, and then after we can each give one more, and then maybe we'll just list off the rest.
Yeah, I mean, I think we don't have this on our list, but I think beating Oregon when they were top 10 with Kasparis, Will Riley, and that team in
Oh
January. I
yeah.
think that was a good one.
Yeah.
Oregon ended up being a 5 seed, so it wasn't that crazy of a win, but they were top 10 at the time, and I think we beat them by like 30. So
Crazy.
that was a good honorable mention for me recently, I guess. I guess when I was there too, I really enjoyed the at Purdue game.
Yeah.
And a lot of road wins that season. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else. I'm sure in 2022 there was a couple good ones.
Yeah. So mine are kind of all Michigan related, I'm realizing, but
Michigan and Iowa on this podcast.
poor Iowa. The Io dagger at Michigan, that was another like Illinois arriving moment, and Io just was on eventually went on such a crazy, game winner streak. And then the second time last year when you won at Michigan and whooped them.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also not expected because, Illinois hadn't been playing that well. You had just gotten murdered by Duke. And then you ended up whooping on Michigan. The Texas win was fun too.
Yep.
Same as the UCLA season. And then really recent regular season game. I thought beating Texas Tech last year. I know Texas Tech fell off, but if JT Tompkins stays healthy, they're like a top 10, top 12 team all season. And that was just a really fun game. And Andre going off and kind of coming out of nowhere for what we had come to expect of him, coming off an injury, going for 20, 24, 25 points or whatever, and helping you secure that win. That I could hear that atmosphere through the TV. So I think that was a big recent win too.
Yeah, no, Texas Tech was a good one. This year's game at Texas Tech will be huge as well.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, Texas Tech beat Duke last season, which was impressive.
Yeah.
So really good win there. I think beating Tennessee last season in Nashville was huge too. Just the fact that we hadn't beat them the previous times that we played them, and then beating them in their home state, I think that was a huge win too.
Yeah, we'll have to do this maybe in maybe not next summer, but the next summer or something, and see if we can add the Duke games coming up, Texas
National
Tech.
Championship.
Finally, maybe we can get UConn. I don't know, but again, just to recap, so Robby and I drafted 5 games each, 5 wins from the Brad Underwood era. Robby went with Illinois over Iowa, advancing to the Final Four. Illinois over Iowa State to advance to the Elite Eight. Illinois over Houston to advance to the Elite Eight. Illinois over Iowa in the final regular season game right before COVID shut down the tournament. Illinois over Wisconsin to win the Big Ten tournament. I'm going to have to come up with a smoother way to put these on a graphic, but I went with my first pick, Illinois over Iowa to win the Big Ten regular season title. Then Illinois over Duquesne to advance to the Sweet 16. Illinois over Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament. And Illinois over Wisconsin to break the losing streak at Kohl Center. And then Illinois upsetting Michigan State, Iowa's freshman season. Court storm, all that fun stuff. So, man, a lot of good memories, a lot of good games. This was tough. There's been so many big moments. Now, I mean, when you have the most Big Ten wins the last 8 years or whatever it is now, it makes sense that this is kind of hard. But yeah, hopefully many more to add to this list coming up. If you had a personal favorite, would it still be Illinois over Iowa for the Final Four?
Probably, yes. I think just that moment of Illinois making the Final Four was like no other. Obviously wasn't in attendance for that one, but yeah, I think that one would be top. I think the one in attendance is probably the one that you picked, Illinois over Iowa for the regular season title. But yeah, got a lot of memories in person too, so it's hard to pick. I know I got Illinois over Iowa before the COVID shutdown too, but that UCLA one too is up there for me. So personal favorite, probably still just making the Final Four, or Illinois over Houston. I was at a bar with friends watching that one too to make the Elite Eight, and that one kind of felt a little bit like we made the Final Four too. So recency bias maybe, but those two really stick out for me.
This might be a tough test, but what's been the biggest could have been huge win that was like so close? I'm not going to say Duke at Madison Square Garden, because we got killed, but like I'm thinking and not going to say like, oh, beating UConn to win the national title or whatever, or make to the national title. Like I think a few when Io was still there, like Michigan State, you lost at home. Maryland, you lost at home. Arizona, you lost at home the next year. There was a few like massive environments that could have been massive games that you just fell a little bit short. Do you have any of those that come to mind, maybe from your time there, or another one that just pops up?
Yeah, I think I wasn't a manager at the time, but I was at the game. I think number 1 Tennessee at the State Farm
Oh
Center
my
in
gosh.
Daney with
Yes. Should
the
have won.
layup. Yeah, to win the game. I think that's a major what if. I mean, obviously it's just one game, but you could beat the number 1 team in the country. You think about it in terms like big picture too. You beat Tennessee. It's a quad 1A win. You might be a 5 seed over a 6 seed, and you might make the Sweet 16. Every game matters, which is crazy. And obviously beating number 1 is insane. You really had that game, I think, if you just stop the ball. But I think when I was there, I always look back to that Maryland game. It wasn't at home, but we were playing at Maryland early in the season.
Yeah.
And insane environment. They ended up calling a foul on Andres Feliz towards the end of the game, which kind of gave them 2 free throws. And Anthony Cowan hit like an insane 3. I don't know if you remember the Trey Burke, Kansas, over Kansas shot in the tournament in the Sweet 16, but it was similar to that where he was, 40 feet from the basket, and he ended up making a 3 to take the lead in that game. But that was a pretty back and forth game. We were winning in the first half, and Maryland ended up coming back and winning. But that was one of the best environments I've ever been in a basketball arena. I've talked about it before, but Maryland has like a straight up like student section and behind the basket, and we could have won that one. And that was a big what if moment for us for sure.
Yeah, I specifically remember that game. I remember the foul. I remember refs are humans too, but I specifically remember it was the really tall, bald ref, but I remember him.
Yeah.
He waited for Cowan to look at him and complain, which it probably was a foul, but like in that moment of the game, like, I just hate that you're calling that. And you're right though about Maryland student section and their fans. It seems really boom or bust. I know they haven't been as good, but it's like when they sell that place out, it's like Mackey, and then when they don't, it's like a third grade, rec league game. It's very boom or bust. But well, cool. This is super fun. Thanks everybody. We almost went 50 minutes just kind of reminiscing about all these big wins, and we got to come up with our next draft and figure out what we're going to do, because I feel like Illinois news is going to sort of die off a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, we got workouts coming up. I think they start June 10th. A couple guys will be playing for their countries out in Europe, but hopefully we'll get some sneak peeks of Illinois and some videos from the social media team to give us some buzz. But yeah, it's a slow time in college hoops, June, July, but we'll make some content for you guys.
Yeah, no, we got to be a little bit more creative, but we can definitely do it. And before we sign off again, just wanted to shout out to Brian Hansen, State Farm agent, dedicated Illini fan. If you're looking for an auto, home, business, life insurance quote, definitely check out brianismyguy.com. Brian's awesome. Known him now for a handful of years through previous ventures, so definitely go check out Brian Hansen. And shout out to Robby. Thanks to Robby for joining us, and congrats again on the marriage. And yeah, do you got anything else big coming up? I mean, it's hard to have anything bigger than the wedding, but
yeah, nothing that big. But yeah, Armchair Illini newsletter's back at it. Took a couple of weeks off, but that released today, and yeah, just getting some more pieces out on what's going on. I know Illinois offered a couple guys for 2027 class, and Quentin Kitt's on campus now to doing some workouts. But yeah, same as usual. Follow me at Robby Nardini on Twitter, doing stuff for the Champaign Room and then Armchair Illini. So definitely good to be back on the pod, Isaac. Appreciate you having me on again, and we'll do this again soon.
Yeah, for sure. Make sure to check out all Robby's stuff. Busy dude, doing a lot of things for the Champaign Room, Armchair, all that fun stuff, like you said. I'm Alana Isaac. We'll definitely be back next week, if not sooner, but plan on something next Monday or so. And thanks for tuning in. Brad Underwood wins draft. Ton of awesome wins. It was fun reminiscing. And ILL.
I know.